Hello and welcome to Getting Naked with Happiness with me, Stephen Liu. Each episode, my guests will share personal stories of resilience and bear their emotions and minds openly. Learn from the wisdoms that they have gained through their journeys and create your very own well-being toolkit. My guest today is a survivor of the 2003 SARS pandemic. SARS, which stands for Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome, is a coronavirus which caused a pandemic, killing 774 people worldwide in 2003. This is a special episode, especially in light of the novel coronavirus, COVID-19, that is spreading rapidly around the world. Ashraf was hospitalized for more than 7 days, but thankfully managed to survive the ordeal and is here today to tell his story.
Okay, so my name is Ashraf. I'm born and raised here in Singapore, local. 28 this year, and currently I'm a recruitment consultant with a company called McGregor Boyle. So yeah, that's pretty much about myself.
You are a survivor of the SARS coronavirus many years ago.
Yes. I was 11 years old at that time, right? It is a long time ago, but at the same time, it's still very fresh in my memory with regards to certain aspects of it, right?
What do you remember about contracting SARS?
So I remember, I think it was the week right after March holidays, right? So during the course of the week, throughout your March holidays as a kid, you're going around playing and all that. But then I remembered in the last maybe like midweek by Wednesday, Thursday, I started having fever, and it was during then that my mom said, okay, since all this thing is going on, let's just stay at home, and check on your fever, lah, right? And I think it gradually increased to a point where I was I couldn't even get out of bed. And so my mom, being my mom, she got really concerned, and she said, okay, let's bring you to the doctor. And at that time I was staying in Woodlands, but for whatever reason she brought me to Yishun Polyclinic. I remember very clearly, right? Because the GPs were all full and all that. So we went to Yishun Polyclinic, and then they instantly took temperature. At that time, I think the virus was already well known and established as an issue, right? If I remember correctly, they took some blood tests and things like that, right? So there was a lot of procedures that happened, and then at that particular moment, they put me in a separate room. I remember I was alone. My mom couldn't come in. Nobody was there. A nurse eventually kept coming in to check on me and just gave me water, I think, if I'm not wrong. But right after, they put me in an ambulance and transport me straight to Tan Tock Seng, right? And I think it was then that I realized I was most likely in a terrible situation. Again, being a kid, you are like, what's going on? And then my mom obviously was panicking and all that. But yeah, so they brought me to Tan Tock Seng. And then when we reached Tan Tock Seng, the thing I remember clearly was there were tents already set up outside, right? So you didn't even reach the A&E. There was this triaging area, I suppose. So they brought me there, and then they, again, this weird, as a kid, I saw it as plastic caves, and I just have to go into the plastic caves, and there's people with these suits coming up and start doing all the checks and making sure that I was okay, I suppose. But that entire few hours, now 17 years later, it's clear. But in the entire few hours, it was quite surreal, right? I mean, can you imagine as a kid, first you are in the holidays and you're playing around, suddenly you had fever, and now you are in the middle of this plastic environment. Everyone is just checking on you. But yeah, that was the part that shook me. And then after that, well, I mean, the guys, the medical professionals at Tan Tock Seng, absolutely amazing, right? So they made sure they took care of me. I was then warded. I had to stay in the hospital for about a week plus, and then eventually cleared off it. And yeah, so I think the recovery period, I remember clearly they mentioned that it was quite fast, probably because I was a kid and my immune system was still quite strong. Throughout the course of it, I couldn't get to meet my parents. I couldn't get to meet my sister. I couldn't go to school. There were constant tests that was being done. The part that scared me the most was, in Asian Polyclinic, when they said you have SARS.
Oh,
Or no, I think they said you're suspected to have SARS. And look, again, I reckon it's very different compared to now, right? The difference then was you, as an 11-year-old child, you do not have a handphone. Most kids nowadays do. You do not have access to all these things. You are watching and you're hearing from adults with regards to what's potentially happening, and all you hear from people around you and even adults is that, oh, SARS is happening and there are people who have died. And then when you hear a doctor come up to you and say you have SARS, then the first thought is you're gonna die. You know, like, I will never admit now as a grown man that I cried, but I did, right? I was a kid. And I was thinking, I genuinely thought for the hour plus I was gonna die. And that's why a lot of the other memories during the time that I was warded and all that, it's relatively vague, I'll be honest. But that period from Yishun Polyclinic all the way to Tan Tock Seng was absolutely clear because I was going to die. And that was what I kept thinking and telling myself. I'm going to die. I'm never going to meet my parents again. I'm just crying and crying. But yeah, look, 17 years later, here I am.
wow.
And you see, it's also because, I mean, you're growing up in an Asian Singaporean family. You know, my parents are those that if you're not feeling well, let's just go to a TCM and then get it fixed. You know, if you're not feeling well, let's self-medicate a bit, or I'll make you some soup and you should be fine. You know, so I've like that was the only time that I was actually hospitalized in the whole of my life. Touch wood. And so prior to that, no experience, no nothing, relatively protected. Always just, you know, self-medicate, gone to TCM, and then the first time you go into hospital, someone tells you you have SARS. It was traumatic, right? It was traumatic.
Was that? I mean, because when you were in the polyclinic, when the medical or the doctor came to see you and said that, hey, you are suspected of having SARS. How long after do you realize that you got SARS?
The same day itself, right? By the time I reached Tan Tock Seng, I think they did a few more tests. I reckon at probably like 4 hours later, they told me that yes, you do have SARS. You're gonna be warded here. You're gonna be quarantined. You won't have access to anyone else in your family. Your family now has to be checked. So eventually, they went on to check my parents, check my sister. They went to quarantine my parents as well, which means that I could not see them, neither could they see me. Right? It was terrifying, right? I mean, again, as a kid, as a child, you definitely want to be in the comforts of your family and knowing that they are okay, while you also know that they are there to make sure that you are okay, right? And my mom has always been my support pillar, lah. So since even even growing up, like if I have tummy ache or whatever, she's always there. And having quite potentially the worst scenario, being in the worst scenario of my life at that time, and not having my mom around was definitely not a good time. I think the only well, on the bright side is that each and every medical professional, from the nurses to the paramedics to the doctors, they were nothing but nice, lah, right? And they were reassuring, saying that yes, you do have this, but we'll take care of you, and so on and so forth. So when I eventually got the news that I had SARS, but the reassurance that I've gotten throughout that few hours already helped to subside the anxiety that I was already having, right? Which definitely helps. And but having said that, once you hear that word again, SARS, like, oh no,
It's such a trigger, right? Yeah.
Because you know, you cool down, right? As a kid, you get into this panic mode, you get anxiety, and you panic, and then once you start cooling down again, and because I remember it was outside, right? So it was a tentage area with the plastic covers and stuff, and they had a fan, so it was helping with the fever that I was having. So it was rather. They keep giving me fluids. They already ran fluids for me, so I was feeling a bit better already, because the fever was already. They were already treating the fever symptom, right? And then obviously I was a bit more calm, a bit more relaxed. And then when the doctor came and said, "Yeah, you actually really do have SARS." I'm like, "Oh no!" And then I elevated again, but they were very reassuring, and I think that is definitely one of the things that I wanna, well, I can't thank them enough, lah, at least during that time. And until today, I'm just grateful that all the medical professionals that we have are really amazing.
Yeah, and a shout out to those medical professionals who are, fighting really hard to deal with the coronavirus currently in the world.
Yes.
And also in
Yes.
Singapore. I think in Singapore, we're doing a really good job. And I think this story of yours, your experience will go a long way for them.
I was just really fortunate to have gone through SARS years ago and be here to tell the story.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing this story, because what you have exhibited will, by sharing this, you also are demonstrating that how you're being able to bounce back from a
Yep.
crisis and you recovered. And I think that for those who are being in quarantine or those who are continuing to confront and battle this virus, there's a lot of things that we need to prepare ourselves mentally, emotionally, that we have to be resilient. And having gone through this ordeal,
Yep.
what are your current thoughts or some of your thoughts on what is happening right now with the novel coronavirus? What are your
See, that's the thing, right? I mean, having gone through it myself means that I am fully aware of the pain, because it was genuinely painful, right? Having constant, your fever going up and down, and then the chest pains, and because of the inability to breathe properly, and then so on and so forth, which means that I can understand and appreciate why people are panicking, because they don't want to be in that same situation. I don't even wish it on my worst enemies, right? Because it's terrible. Having said that, I think it's also ideal that people should not panic, because I mean, it's a terrible situation. But I think one thing that I learned from going through that ordeal is that panicking just makes it worse, right? And it's crying, thinking that you're going to die. It's not helping the situation. But being able to look at it from a bit more of a pragmatic viewpoint and say, look, okay, we are going to take the precautionary measures, but we don't have to get to a point where we are hysterical, right? And I think the other part, as I mentioned just now, the medical professionals here in Singapore are absolutely amazing. I served time as an ambulance medic, so I can give that perspective as well for 2 years, right? But that being said, from the nurses to the doctors to even just the people outside, at the hospital area. Like I still remember that particular Malay lady who took my temperature at Yishun Polyclinic then. She was very reassuring. Right, she took my temperature. Obviously, it was really high, but she could see that my mom was totally hysterical and like, oh, help my son, But she was just very cool and calm and collected. And these are people in the front line, despite the fact that they are not technically medical professionals, but they are in the front line, and the ability for them to handle the situation it's really something that's genuinely admirable. But yeah, I mean, look, sorry, I digressed a bit, but I think in short, having gone through the ordeal, like I said, you take the precautionary measures. You do not want to get anything, right? Hopefully never. But at the same time, there is no need to panic, right? There's no need to be hysterical. And if you are concerned, just do what's necessary, right? And I think our local government has been very proactive with regards to sharing information, sharing steps and necessary. As long as you do what's necessary, I think hopefully, none of us, or I suppose the listeners, will have to go through that ordeal.
We can also choose to react or respond to this with compassion and empathy.
Yes, 100%, 100%, right? I think that compassion part and empathy, not just towards as we have established, not just towards the patients and the family members who have to go through quarantine, or anyone who's affected, right, by it, but also especially to, for example, the medical professionals, because they have to go back to their own families as well, right, and they are exposed day in day out, And we have heard of some stories where they were refused service, be it from like food stalls or different other commercial places. But that's not ideal. I think having some level of compassion and having some level of empathy towards all these people who are affected one way or the other is key to ensure that us as a society can beat the virus, right? Because I think that's the only way we can do it. If we come together and help each other out in some form or the other, versus panicking and being hysterical and, and going out and doing. Look, I mean, I've been there, right? I know you cannot avoid the panicking moment.
Yeah,
it is horrendous. But I think it's also because I'm on the other side now. I can tell you for with certainty that if you remain calm, it should be fine.
yeah. And I mean, let me backtrack a little bit.
Go ahead.
Wanted to ask you at the start, but I left the question out. Do you have any idea how you contracted the virus?
Good question. No idea. And I think contact tracing back then is not as advanced as it is today, right? So I think they did try to, but in all honesty, I have no idea. And I don't think they established it at that time. I think they definitely tried, but it came out of nowhere because my parents didn't get it, my sister didn't get it. We had close contact with them. It could be I don't know. I genuinely have no idea.
Okay, thank you, Ashraf, for sharing and your great story. And I hope that this story go a long way for those people who are dealing with it, and also to a shout out to medical professionals who are doing really a great job in serving and helping everyone to go through these difficult times. As you may be aware, this episode or this show is called Getting Naked with Happiness, whereby guests will come on the show weekly and to share personal stories and awful tips of resilience. So on that note, I'd like to ask you that what are some of your resilience factors that you think that you have? Or if you could share some resilience tips for at this moment, what would that be?
We're talking about the current situation?
Yep, for the current situation.
Well, it goes back to essentially the idea that you mentioned just now, right? It's just having knowledge is key. I think knowledge allows you to eventually be more resilient because you understand, right? I think a lot of people tend to be a bit more panicky, a bit more anxious, especially when there's a lot of we live in the age of fake news, right? So if you really listen to the experts, proper experts, equip yourself with the right kind of knowledge, what that essentially allows you to do is to be a bit more resilient in that sense, purely because you understand, okay, so you're taking all the right necessary steps, all the necessary measures based on advice from the experts, and that allows you to already become a bit more resilient. But I think it's also about going back to the idea of what you mentioned just now, which is empathy, right? Being empathetic to each and everyone within the society, regardless of where you are in the world right now. I was in Japan a week ago. Everyone was still very aware and very conscious about the fact that there is the virus going around. Everyone was very respectful of each other's spaces and things like that. And I think it should be the case across the globe, wherever that you're listening to this from. I think it's equipping yourself with the right kind of knowledge from the actual experts, not fake news. Being calm about it and just be empathetic towards others around you. I think it should help you to be, well, hopefully a bit more resilient towards such times that we are living right now.
Thank you, Ashraf. Thanks for that tip. And I think my biggest takeaway for this session and chat with you is that knowledge is the key, and we can also exercise our strength of empathy and compassion.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and there's no better way to gain knowledge than to also listen to people like yourself. It's a good way, right? It's just an amazing way. Obviously, this is one topic. There's so many more. So I thank you, Steph, for inviting me. Thank you. It's genuinely an amazing initiative.
Thank you, Ashraf, and thanks for taking your time for being on this show.